They saw the ship long before they understood what it meant. A dark, monstrous silhouette rising from a wall of violent clouds as thunder snarled across the horizon and the sea trembled beneath them like something alive and furious. Sailors gripped the ropes with white knuckles while wind screamed through the mast like a tortured spirit trying to claw its way free. And yet through that chaos, through sheets of rain that blurred the world into streaks of trembling silver, the shape of an ancient vessel slowly emerged, glowing with a sickly blue light that made every man on deck feel the cold sting of fear deep in his chest. No one needed to speak its name. They felt it in their bones, the weight of generations of terror pressing upon them, because every sailor in every ocean knew the same legend: the Flying Dutchman, the ghost ship cursed to wander the seas for eternity. But this story didn't begin with lightning and fear. It began centuries earlier, in an age when the world was still young in its arrogance, when wooden ships crossed oceans for gold, glory, and empires, and when one man believed he was greater than the sea itself. Captain Hendrik van der Decken was not merely respected, he was a force. A tall, commanding man with a voice that could silence storms and a stare that made seasoned sailors obey before he even spoke. Under him, voyages that should have failed became triumphs. Storms that should have shattered fleets became victories, and every port he entered whispered his name as though he were a legend walking among mortals. But beneath all his brilliance lived a pride sharp enough to cut destiny itself. In 1641, he commanded the grand merchant vessel that would one day become the Flying Dutchman, sailing from Amsterdam toward the East Indies with cargo worth nations, carrying soldiers, traders, scholars, and dreamers, all confident that with Van der Decken leading them, no danger could touch them. For weeks, the sea was calm, the sky clear, the wind obedient. The crew laughed, sang, prayed, gambled, told stories of sirens and monsters and lands rich with spices, and they believed the voyage would be one more victory carved into the captain's record. But fate waits patiently, and its moment arrived as they neared the southern tip of Africa, the Cape of Storms. Every sailor knew the name, feared the waves that rose like mountains, the winds that changed direction like living creatures, the currents that dragged ships into darkness without mercy. As the Dutchman approached the cape, the sky blackened with unnatural speed, clouds thick as smoke swallowing the stars, lightning crackling like the heavens themselves were fracturing, and the wind twisted into howls that sounded almost human. The crew begged their captain to wait, to turn back, to anchor until the storm passed. But pride is a poison that blinds even the wise. Van der Decken refused. He stood at the wheel like a man challenging the gods, his coat whipping around him, his hair soaked, his eyes burning with something between madness and determination. "No storm commands me," he roared, his voice tearing through the thunder. "I will sail through this cape even if it takes me until Judgment Day." The moment he spoke those words, the storm shifted. The winds froze, the waves stopped mid-crash as though held by invisible hands. A coldness swept across the ship, not the cold of weather, but the cold of something watching. And then a figure appeared at the bow, tall, shadowed, its face hidden, its presence heavy, like death itself had stepped aboard. Some said it was the devil. Others believed it was an angel, or perhaps something older than both. It spoke only once, its voice echoing not in the air but inside their minds. "You shall sail until the end of time." Lightning struck the ship with unnatural force, and everything exploded into white. When the crew awakened, they were no longer alive, but they were not dead either. The ship glowed with the blue fire of damnation, the sails shredded yet eternal, the wood rotting yet unbreakable. Waves no longer touched them, winds no longer moved them, storms no longer threatened them, they followed them. Word of the ghost ship spread through oceans like plague. British fleets saw it drift straight through hurricanes as if floating on another plane. French officers reported a glowing vessel steering into wind faster than their fastest ships. A young prince, later King George V, saw it off the coast of Australia glowing blood red before vanishing, and the lookout who first spotted it died the next day. Some said the Dutchman brought disaster. Others believed it warned of danger. Some swore they heard screams carried across the waves on moonless nights. Others claimed they saw spectral figures pacing the deck, trapped in torment. Yet the most terrifying thing was always the same. The ship moved like a memory, untouchable, unstoppable, inevitable. And somewhere at the helm, trapped in an eternity he forged with his own arrogance, stood Captain Hendrik van der Decken, eyes burning with the same pride that doomed him, still trying to conquer a storm that no longer belonged to this world. Modern scholars call it illusion. Scientists say it is light bending across waves. Skeptics dismiss it as sailor tales born from exhaustion and fear. But too many sightings match. Too many voices across centuries and continents describe the same ghostly blue glow, the same torn sails, the same silent passage across impossible seas. And to this day, sailors whisper that when the sky darkens suddenly, when the wind changes without warning, when the ocean grows unnaturally quiet before a storm, a cursed ship still glides just beyond the veil of reality, searching, wandering, waiting. A ship that cannot die, a crew that cannot rest, a captain that cannot surrender. The Flying Dutchman, forever lost in the eternal storm.